Hey, movie lovers, citizens of Earth, welcome to a little extra entertainment extra. I'm Richard Crouse. Terry Hart has toddled off back to TMN, but joining me in the studio, I am so thrilled to have the star and director and co-writers of a film that opened yesterday in Canada here called Frances Ha. Please welcome Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. Nice to see you guys.
Thank you.
And I was saying before we flipped on the microphones here, I loved this movie. I've seen it a couple of times now. And the thing that really struck me seeing it again was how much more I got out of it the second time than I did the first time through. And I think it's one of those movies that will deepen the more times that you see it. And that to me is the mark of something that people should go see. So anyone listening, go see this movie.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about the process of this, because I have this idea in my head. The film in some ways has kind of a documentary feel to it, just the way it's shot, and you feel like you're sitting on a ledge watching some very private moments between people. And Greta, one of the things that I've always admired about your performances is how natural they feel on screen, and it does. I don't never feel like I'm seeing a process of any sort. And the thing then that I was surprised to read was an article that you wrote for the New Yorker about doing 42 takes of one scene that happens in a washroom. I won't give anything away, but it's an intense little scene that happens between you and your best friend, and you did a lot of takes of it, and that surprised me for some reason. And my question is, I guess, how do you make it feel so natural when you've done the same thing 45 or 6 or 7 times in a row?
Well, I'm very. It's always flattering when people say, "Oh, it looks just so spontaneous and like it just happened." But I mean, it's a multi-part process, and I think it starts when we wrote the script together, which is we spend a long time trying to make it sound both lifelike but better than life. But it's so the writing process takes care of a lot of the feeling of the film, I think, because we really stick to the script. But then it's the way, I mean, it's the way Noah directs. When you're acting for him, you do it so many times, but it doesn't. It allows you to find all these different layers, so that by the time that you get to the end of all of the takes, you have this performance that feels like multidimensional and like you can almost touch it, because it feels so. Because life is never just one color. It's always a lot of colors, and it takes time to work that into a performance. And the way he directs Mickey and I and everyone, it's guiding us in these very minute ways so that we feel free, but also that we're giving all these different variations.
So, no, tell me a little bit about, the process of saying, okay, you know what? We're going to do that again. And we're going to do that. You know what? I just want to, what kind of direction are you giving people? Are you actually, do you give line readings? Do you, or are you just hoping that the actors by repetition will find something, explore a different part of it that maybe you didn't in take 29?
Well, it depends on the take, of course, and the scene and whatever we're trying to get in that at that particular time. In the scene that Greta wrote about, there was an intensity to the scene and a kind of emotional component, and so for that one, part of it was not just individual performance, but finding where Mickey and Greta were both sort of at the right spot at the same time for what we needed at that moment in the movie. Right. There were some amazing takes along the way where that were maybe too emotional or too intense, and so it was finding some of it's a kind of calibration, and I think also what I find a lot is blocking has something to do with it too, and in that particular scene, we changed the blocking maybe, 10 takes in or something?
Really? Like 15 or 15 takes in.
15 takes in. So in a way, it's almost like you go back to zero, because suddenly we discovered it, and it's not even something you necessarily are like, this is exactly, like, oh, it's exactly this. But I think by exploration, you discover that actually the physicality, I think in this case for Greta, the physicality was kind of affecting her ability to sort of get where she needed to go. So once we changed her physical movement, it actually informed the performance a lot. And I find that happens a lot. And the more I do this, I think the more I sort of put faith in sort of physical performance.
But I was just like, he never gives line readings or anything.
Right, yeah.
It's never, but it's always like, I think it's, it's the mark of a great director is they can tell you something like, why don't you, they'll tell you something physical or something that's not directly the result they want. It's something you can do that will get them the result they want. So they don't say, I need it more sad. They'll say like, why don't you walk on this line? And then all of a sudden you find this other thing that you didn't expect that was there. And I don't know. I mean, I think that's like it's almost like you have to be very psychologically aware of people around you because you can't just say, I want it like this. You have to be able to tease it out of people.
Yeah, and the movie, I had no idea. And I think that's kind of the beauty of this movie is, for me, it felt natural. There were times that I really thought that I was watching things that I shouldn't be seeing, moments that I shouldn't be seeing. And I loved that about it. And in the second viewing in particular, things still took me by surprise and things made me laugh in a different way. There's a scene where your character, Frances, says, I've got I can't remember the line. I've got a busy day. I've got, I don't have time to eat breakfast. And the next scene you're having a bagel. And the day is, you just know that the day is going to go. The day is going to be spent doing that. And I love those moments that tell you a great deal about the character that you are going to spend an hour and a half with, but that are wordless. So she said, I'm busy. I've got this. But then when you see her eating the bagel, you know a lot about Frances in that one moment.
Yeah, we wanted to. I remember when we were talking about that sequence, we wanted to dramatize what it feels like to never leave the house for the whole day. Because it's such a bad feeling when it happens, but it does happen sometimes. But it was like, how do we show that? And then, it just ends with her eating again Chinese food on the couch and just, but it was, we figured out how to show that.
Right. She keeps having the intention of going.
She gets up several times.
There's a lot of getting up. And,
Well, what's the line in the movie when after the dance, you're pulling your things together and your dance coach says, well, take your time. And he says, well, I don't know how to do anything but take my time.
Yeah. That was, I think that was a Noah line.
Yeah.
I
have trouble leaving places.
I have trouble leaving places.
No, she says, take your time. And she's like, I can't help it.
It's fantastic. I'm speaking with Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. They are the star and director and co-writers of Frances Ha, which is in theaters right now. When we come back, we're going to discuss a little bit more about the shooting of the film and the choice to shoot it in black and white. So stay with us on a little extra, Entertainment Extra. Hey, movie lovers and citizens of Earth, welcome back to Extra Entertainment Extra. I'm Richard Crouse. Joining me in studio, we have Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. They are the star and director and co-writers of Frances Ha, which is in theaters right now. The story is about a 27-year-old dancer. She's living in New York. She's having trouble coping with housing, with her career, with her best friend who seems to be moving along without her. And I think one of the things about this film that appeals to me is that Frances is struggling, but and she has moments of immaturity, but I didn't see her as an immature character. I saw her as someone who's fully formed, who just hadn't quite stepped over the threshold yet. And so tell me a little bit about finding this character, because she's really, she's fascinating and fascinating to watch. So tell me a little bit about finding her, about finding Frances as you were writing the script.
Well, we really, we did find her in the writing. We work very much like the writing tells us who the people are and what the story is, as opposed to us discussing who they are and us discussing what the story is and then imposing it.
Right.
So it kind of emerged from these moments that we were exploring and these scenes. And I think when we locked into her, it was almost like we locked into her speech patterns, and then we expanded that. It was like we found how she was funny and how she was cocky and how she was sad. And I think we almost avoided talking about it too much, I think, because I think looking back, we never said it, but it was almost like when things are good, you don't want to spirit it away. You're like, something's working about this. And then, I mean, it was a different process to find her as an actor. It was like Noah was saying, was more physical, but I think as a writing, it just kind of came out.
But I think, I mean, as you say, I think we always, she's a kind of comic character in some ways, but she is smart and she is even self-aware in a certain way. I mean, there's certainly many moments where she's probably may want to sort of check what she's, who her audience is while she's saying something.
Right.
But she, and that she is even mature in a certain way too. But I think like many people, she probably can probably assess somebody else's maturation more easily than she can her own.
Well, I think it's difficult because she didn't strike me maybe as being the most introspective of characters, although she gets it. Like at one point when she goes to Paris on a credit card that arrived in the mail, and she's like, well, I know I'm going to be paying for this forever, whatever the line is. She understands that there are consequences to the actions that she takes.
Right.
She just kind of doesn't care sometimes.
I think at that moment she's particularly heartbroken, and I think that she's willing to do something foolish because she feels like she has to do something big. But yeah, I think she's, we've talked. 27 was the age I was while we were making it. So in some ways we were tied to me being 27. Right. But it was also, part of it was also, I think 27 is a really watershed age. I think things really change. And I think one of the qualities that I think comes up around 27 is, up all the way through college, you're sort of on a track, and so time is passing on a track in a way. And then if you go to graduate school, there's more tracks. And like Frances didn't find a new track. Like she and Sophie found a new track to be on. And Frances, I think there's this feeling when you're young that like things are happening to you, you're not making choices. And I think around 27, you're like, oh my God, I've been making choices. I just didn't know they were choices. And I think Frances is kind of owning that for the first time. Like, things aren't just unfolding. I'm making them unfold.
When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach from Frances Ha, and we'll talk about whether or not there could be another film about Frances maybe 10 years from now. Hey, movie lovers and citizens of Earth. Welcome back to Extra Entertainment Extra. I'm Richard Crouse. Joining me in the studio, we have Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. They are the star, director, and co-writers of Frances Ha. It's in theaters right now. And you might have gotten the idea that I'm kind of in love with this movie. So been thinking about this a great deal. I've seen it a couple of times over the last month. And I've been wondering what happened to Frances. We get an idea that her life is on track. We get an idea that, if you're just joining us now, Frances is a 27-year-old semi-unemployed dancer in New York. She's having some housing problems. She's undateable, according to her close male friends. There's all sorts of things that are going on in her life. Near the end, and I will give away nothing here, she seems to have resolved some of those issues. But I found myself wondering what happened to her. Is this something that you guys think about in the writing, or is it just a self-contained story that you tell us in the movie?
No, I mean, I think, at least for me, any movie I've made or script I've written, when it ends there, it ends for me. Right. I don't. I think it's probably self-protective because otherwise you just, you can just go on forever. You got to stop somewhere, and so where the movie ends is as much as I know anyway.
Have you thought about it, Greta? I mean, because, as a co-writer, that's one thing, but then you have to embody her for however long it takes to shoot, and then, so I feel like maybe you're a little closer to it.
Well, I mean, it's amazing to have the movie be released and have people like it as much as they
The
do
reviews,
and go
I'll
to
say
it.
the reviews have been great. It's doing really well in the U.S. where it's been out for a few weeks now.
Yeah, it's been amazing, but it's also, there's an inherent sadness because it feels like in some ways it'll live on, but it feels like, Frances belongs to other people now in a way, and
Right.
it's kind of like this victory lap of who she is, and I think with any of the characters that I've played that I've loved, it's always really, really hard to let them go. But that being said, while we were talking about the before midnight, before sunrise,
While the microphones were off, I was saying in 10 years
Yeah.
you should revisit Frances, and then in 10
Right.
years after that, because you were 27, the same age as the character,
Yeah.
so we can grow up with you
Yeah.
on screen.
Well, I think what's interesting. I mean, what I love about films is there's a kind of inherent melancholy to them of this. That when they're done, and there is no more film. Like that's all the life you get of these people. And I think that there's something I've always loved about that. But it drove me to rewatch every film I loved. It's almost like you're looking for there to be more than there is of that life. And I was always kind of when DVDs started happening and they'd put out like deleted scenes, I in theory loved them, but in reality hated them because it was like, wait, you didn't tell me there was this it sort of felt like a cheat or something.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I was so committed to this being the only thing that there was. And I don't know. I think there's this sense of like, even when you start a film, you know it will end and there's no more of it. I think that feeling is, I don't know. I love it. It's like why I love theater too. It's got that feeling of like, that's going to be all there is of that play or all. And I mean, I would love to revisit Frances because selfishly I loved playing her, but I also know that even if I revisited her, it would have a terminus. It wouldn't be infinite.
I was saying, and we just have a few seconds left, but no, I was saying I saw this movie for the first time in New York, and it was such a great thing to see a movie that to me feels so much like a New York movie, even though I don't think we see the Chrysler Building. I don't think we see all the things that you think of when you think of these movies, but it felt like it. And it felt to me like the movies that Jim Jarmusch used to make. It felt for one thing, it's in black and white, but the style is a little different. Was that an influence on you at all? Or...
Yeah, well, I mean, because we were shooting in black and white, I maybe even more so than I would with a color movie, I kind of went and looked at a number of sort of specific black and white movies, and also because they're kind of different variations of black and white as well. There's like more contrasty black and white. There's the more kind of romantic black and white, but yeah, I mean, I think also the kind of approach he took, the sort of production style that I imagine anyway that he took to Down by Law or Stranger Than Paradise. I mean, I think and those movies feel that sort of anthropology of those movies is so amazing and real. And I mean, when I was kind of young teenager when they came out in theaters, and it was like the perfect time for me to it was like discovering a kind of like great punk record or something. And but I think for me in a way, shooting in black and white kind of allowed me to see New York with new eyes. I could because it's a city I know so well and have so many associations with. And I was also coming back to New York, having shot a movie in Los Angeles. Greenberg was a movie I'd made before, and so I think I didn't think of this so much consciously at the time, but in retrospect, I think sort of by looking at it in black and white, you kind of see a new city. It's like the same city, but it's different. And it kind of allowed me to, maybe it kind of freed me up in a way and kind of allowed me to I don't know, find sort of new things, visually.
Well, it's a fantastic looking movie. It's a fantastic movie. The movie is called Frances Ha. It is playing at a theater near you somewhere right now. Go see it. Greta Gerwig, Noah Baumbach, thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.